Welcome, everyone. This is episode 50 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am Chris Phelps, and my co-host and 50 episodes down good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hi, guys. Welcome to the Comics in Motion podcast. What we like to do here is we like to review media like movies, TV shows, and games that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing the media mainly from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader, and my co-host Chris will be reviewing mainly from that media perspective, and we'll walk through our given choice of the week and give our thoughts on it. What we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review, so if you haven't watched our choice of the week, I'd advise you to proceed with caution. And what we also love is when you can head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcast catcher of choice and drop us a 5-star review. This really helps us grow the show and gets us out to other listeners. Now, today we actually have a special guest with us as well. So, friend of the show, an artist, an all-round great Cockney geezer, Mike Lee Graham. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, happy to be back again. Very, very glad.
Excellent. It's great to have you back. So, the last time you were on, we were reviewing Halloween, and you were just coming up to the deadline for your Kickstarter, Our Final Halloween. So how did that all go near the end?
Oh, it went great. Yeah. I think I've mentioned on that last podcast I was on that it was getting to that kind of crunch time, and, the nerves were a little bit taut. But we needn't have worried. We smashed our target when we were actually at Comic-Con on, I think it was the 29th or the 30th. So we still had a day after that. And it was great. I didn't realize that the algorithm for Kickstarter meant that if you had something funded, then Kickstarter would actually really start plugging it. Which sort of seems a bit counterintuitive, to be honest. But yeah, it was great. Resounding success, all funded. Everyone really liked the comic as well. So that was the super important thing. And yeah, it was great to get that feedback as well.
That is bizarre. I never knew. I haven't personally done a Kickstarter, but what's the point in plugging it if you've already hit your target?
Well, I guess I suppose the point is that everyone likes a winner, if a project's already been funded, then I think Kickstarter takes a bit of a cut. I think I'm not really sure how it works still. The writer and producer Mike, he's the one that does the Kickstarters, because I think I'd fucking implode if I tried to do one. I think they've probably done their homework on this. I'd imagine that any Tom, Dick, or Harry can start a Kickstarter, but it takes quite a lot of work to get one funded. And I guess that's kind of the prize at the end is like, oh, well done, you got it funded. And now, as Kickstarter, we will plug your product a bit more for you. Because it does seem to happen where all of a sudden it will just like skyrocket. I'd need to have a look at the graph, but it like really, really spikes at the end, how much came in. So yeah, there must have been something going on from Kickstarter's end there, definitely.
Yeah, I noticed that because it smashed it in the end, but I was getting a little bit nervous for both of you because it right up to the 31st, and I was thinking, it still seemed to be 10% away or something.
Yeah,
and like I say, once it broke that ceiling, then it way overshot it, didn't it?
Yeah, completely. And it was like all of a sudden getting new people in was effortless because I'm not like a huge social media guy, and just constantly being on social media, plugging the project and things like that, it kind of sucked the life out of me a bit. And when I was at Comic-Con as well, I don't have a medium when I'm trying to push something onto someone. Mm-hmm. I don't have like a good, like Mike's fantastic at it. It's very organic when he wants to talk to people about a project. But I was basically just punching people in the face with information about the comic. And there are a lot of people at my stall at Comic-Con looking like sort of deers and headlights when I was trying to talk to them about it. I'm very much a behind-the-scenes guy, and I think that's where I should stay.
Sounds like my dating technique.
Well, that's a bit worrying that day. But no, I must admit, Mike, it seems like reverse marketing, reverse psychology. It's almost, as myself and Dave were in a band, it's almost like when they used to give you tickets to sell yourself at a club. You know, you sell 50 tickets, you make a bit of money or so. It's very, very bizarre way of marketing, which is good because it's reliant on yourself. Because obviously, if you believe in the product and the thing, then you are going to promote it as best as you can, aren't you? Get the word out there. So definitely,
and there are it really separates the people that are on there. Really, what's the best way to sort of say it? Like really kind of passionate about their product. And it separates people like that from people that are quite clearly just trying to get a buck or two. The way that Kickstarter does it is, you get rewarded for putting the work in to fund your project.
Yeah.
Which is, I understand it. I understand it.
Yeah, that's very good. And obviously, Mike, with the little mention of the music, I believe, Dave, you've got a bit of news about today's episode.
Yeah, so we're delighted you could join us, Mike, for our landmark episode, our 50th episode. And we thought we'd try and approach this one, in a special way. So we tried to we took a few of the pages out of our final Halloween, and at Comics in Motion Towers, we were trying to do a bit of a seance, and we were trying to conjure Loki himself. So not Tom Hiddleston, the actual god of mischief, the Norse god of mischief, Loki. But it kind of went a little bit wrong, and he's cast a little bit of a spell on us. So at Comics in Motion Towers today, we've been having these bands just mysteriously pop up, and everyone around has been kind of bursting into song. So it seems to have worn off now. So just hopefully that won't happen in this recording.
Good stuff. Now, today's episode, guys, as well, is sponsored by our good friends Sudio. So if you get over to www.sudio.com, and they've got the latest technology and lines in headsets, earpieces, everything you can think of. Me and Dave are rocking the headphones today as well. We do the podcast. We can't recommend them highly enough. And if you get over there, use code Comics in Motion Podcast, you get 15% off. And all orders between now and Christmas, you'll get a free Christmas box as well with a few goodies in there for your order. So get over there, guys, and you get free delivery as well. So that's sudio.com.
So, Chris, I think it's happening. So there's a band just appeared right now, and they're all wearing flares, and they're all kind of glittery and stuff. Okay, that was a bit weird. Yeah, whatever. Right, so in terms of chit-chat, guys, have you seen the Avengers trailer coming out?
Yes, I have.
What did you make to it?
I have no idea what is going to happen in that film, but I know I'm just incredibly invested. They didn't even need to make a trailer, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's nice that they did, but I was going to go and watch the film anyway. Very little shown, just little glimpses of what's going to happen next. And I love the opening with Tony Stark. I thought that was really, really strong. And then the ending with Ant-Man was fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't be more excited. I just watched Ant-Man and the Wasp on Monday. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what else to say. Like, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I know I'm going to love the film.
I think I agree with you. They didn't need to drop a trailer, and even in the build-up, I'm thinking, what are they really going to show us? And they somehow managed to show us almost nothing, but still get me really excited about it. It tells you nothing about the story at all, apart from, I'm not going to spoil it, but obviously if you watch the end credits of Ant-Man and the Wasp, you're kind of wondering, how something in that trailer happens. And also you're thinking, well, how does Captain Marvel, how does that dovetail into it? And, are the Skrulls or the Kree going to show up in Infinity War? Who knows? Or at least we know it's called Endgame now, don't we?
Yeah.
So Chris, what did you think?
Well, I actually am convinced, guys, 100%, having read a lot of stuff online and watching that trailer, that Bruce Banner is actually either Loki or a Skrull, or whatever they're called, because I think it all ties in to what the Russo brothers said regarding one of the Avengers could be. Is it a Skrull, they call it? Already. And that's why he never changed it to the Hulk. The rumour was it was Loki when there was all that thing with Thanos at the start. We've got a Hulk total thing. But the fact that he couldn't change is convincing me more and more that he isn't Bruce Banner. It really is. I don't know why, but it's just something around that whole thing with the Hulk not transforming and stuff. Especially when the Hulk Buster was getting absolutely decimated at the end of Infinity War, and he still didn't change until Thor rescued him. Spoilers. But yeah, that's my idea anyway.
That's interesting. So there was a whole secret invasion storyline where a lot of the Skrulls, they were kind of sleeper agents, and so they were parading as the heroes, but they didn't know themselves. They thought that they were
like what's it called? What that film?
Yeah, I know. I know exactly what you mean, Mike.
It's the Winter Soldier. It's the Manchurian Candidate. Oh, thank God, got out there. Like a sort of a sleeper agent that doesn't actually know that they are a bad guy until there's like a reveal.
Yeah.
That's the best way to work it, because if they tried to make out that one of the characters, and my money would be on Black Widow, or is it Red Widow? What's she? Is it Black Widow?
Black Widow, yeah.
Yeah. That's who my money is on to be a Skrull. But then, because also you could play both angles where you could say they didn't know that they were a Skrull, or they did know that they were a Skrull the whole time, because she's always playing she's a spy, so she always seems a bit shifty. I think she'd be like the easiest transition. And then you could give Black Widow her own film as a Skrull or something. There's a lot you could do with that all of a sudden.
Very good, that. I mean, I must admit, watching it, guys, it has got me quite emotional, because obviously the Hulk is up there with Superman as my favourite superhero. And also, I was a bit upset with Tony Stark being on there. So because of everything, I just want to, someone's just passed me a guitar, and I just want to go into song, guys.
1, 2, 3, 4. early in the morning, late in the evening. Gotta believe it, oh king, I never was a dreamer.
All right, guys, it's your 50th episode. Congratulations. We've been doing this for a while now, so I'm interested to know what are some of the highlights that you guys have had.
Well, it's good of you to ask, Mike, in that completely unprompted and unscripted way.
Did I have my radio presenter voice on all of a sudden?
So I think for me, when we set about on this, and so the origins of this podcast, so Chris and I obviously go way back, and Chris had started his own podcast. I'd started up a podcast, and I came onto Chris's podcast, and we just found our rhythm very quickly, and we said, we should really kick off and do something. And I'd been toying with the idea of doing something in the comic space. I just didn't know what. And then so we had a bit of back and forth and came up with this concept about looking at these media from, completely different perspectives and kind of going through it. But in our first few episodes, we went through some really good movies, some nostalgic ones, some more recent movies. But one of the highlights for me was when we hit around episode 8, when we hit Generation X, which was a Fox TV movie that is absolutely awful. It's so bad it's up on YouTube and no one cares. So
he still gets me now after all this time. It's absolutely terrible.
But also Matt Frewer, who, is Max Headroom, puts on the most Jim Carrey performance you've ever seen. And also what we found is, going back a lot of the time to the 90s, how unbelievably misogynistic everyone seems to be, and incredibly, incredibly sleazy.
You may or may not want to know that I only need a single mutant cell from the pineal region of your brain. Of course, I will have to chop through the rest of your brain to get to it.
I know it sounds funny, but I just want your mutant brain. I'll operate on you tomorrow. Seems to me skin your hair is just really bad. Drink at you such a big workload. Yeah. Ooh, that's why I'm sleazy. I'm sleazy and I'll watch you snoring. That's why I'm sleazy. I should come with a child one. These mutants can't fly. I sigh. I wanna be free. sleazy and I'll watch you snoring. That's why I'm sleazy. I should come with a child one.
My highlights have been my good friend Dave in my virtual studio situated to my right, who's absolutely done me up like a kipper with a line that has haunted me for 50 episodes. And every time he does it to me, we seem to enjoy the absolute dross films that have just like, you know, I'm literally lay on the floor poking my eyes out thinking, what hell has he put upon me for 90 minutes? And it's always the worst films that I absolutely am invested in. So we're going stuff like Spawn, that was atrocious. Howard the Duck was absolutely awful, but then good old Dave teed me up with the Fantastic Four, which I honestly didn't think we could beat Howard the Duck. But he's Spawn and born a line of, Dave, this is the worst film I've ever seen. Now, I've probably said this about 5 or 6 times, but a special honorary mention to the first film that made me say that line, and that was on episode 5, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think the only way I can justify that abomination, other than the Hoff wearing an eye patch, which was classic, and punching a wall in a cave randomly for no reason whatsoever, is to go into a song.
What's the story, Nicholas Fury?
For the 50th episode, we thought we'd go back to what we started with. So, episode 1 and 2, we did Superman 1 and 2 with the great Christopher Reeve. For episode 50, we decided we're going for Superman 3. Again, great film, released 1983. But Dave, you've got a few words for us on this one, haven't you?
Yeah, it was so interesting going back, wasn't it? Because we'd seen these, possibly at least tens of times, but maybe even hundreds of times as kids. And then you watch it more with adult eyes looking back, and it looks very differently. But, I mean, we didn't go... Obviously, as kids, we just had the theatrical cut. Whereas, now... We also have the Donna cut and the musical.
Had to be you in Superman 2. I picked you some flowers and gave up my powers for somebody who could make me be true. Red, yellow, and blue. I picked up a berry and I lost my cherry, then beats up for two. This vocal is crass, got thrown through some glass. I'm all out of luck, being human does suck. I should learn Kung Fu. For everybody else, with me before Zod. Bomb goes off, oops, oh my God. It had to be you, for Superman 2. It had to be you. Really quite mean, and I don't scream Ursula seems quite cross, none of the boss, hey, shouldn't do. For everybody else, we will be Zod. Without my powers, I'm moving abroad. Baby, had to be you for Superman 2, had to be you.
All right, guys, that's enough of that. I have reversed the seance, so there'll be no more musical shenanigans from that pesky Loki, the real one, not the Tom Hiddleston one. So that's enough of this hijinks. Let's get on with some film reviews.
Oh, thank God for that. I can take this spandex off now.
Screaming into my microphone there.
I've got a guitar with 2 strings, so I don't know how I've done it. But yeah, anyway, thanks for that, Mike.
You could stop playing the banjo. Right, guys, I am going to give us a little bit of comics background. So obviously we've done Superman and the Christopher Reeve one and the Man of Steel, so I had to keep coming up with different comics backgrounds. But this time I'm going to talk about kryptonite. So in 1940, there was an unpublished story written by Superman co-creator Jerry Siegel called The K-Metal from Krypton. Now, quite why this was never published isn't really known, but it's rumored to be because in the story, Lois Lane finds out Superman's identity. So obviously she does years later, but this was 1940, and so if anything, I think that's probably why they didn't have it, and they never published it. Now, in this story, this K metal was a mineral from Krypton, and that drained Superman of his powers, but also it gave superhuman powers to regular humans as well. But I would file this under influences because kryptonite actually didn't debut in the comics. Do you want to have a guess where it debuted?
I'm absolutely flabbergasted. I never knew that.
Oh.
So it actually made its debut in the radio serial, The Adventures of Superman. Now, The Adventures of Superman was a long-running radio serial. It ran from 1940 to 1951, and it's popular belief that kryptonite was introduced to give the Superman voice actor, a guy called Bud Collyer, time to have a vacation. So basically, in the episodes when he's off sunning himself up somewhere, you'd get a stand-in voice actor who just kind of make groaning sounds as the incapacitated Superman that had been exposed to kryptonite. So I don't know that this is true, but I quite like that story. Now, also in this radio serial, and that a lot of the canon, I guess, comes out of this radio serial. Krypton was in the same orbit as Earth, but was the opposite side to the sun. So you know how you get these silly little things where, well, how does kryptonite actually make its way to Earth? So in the radio serial, that's how they kind of rationalized it. So bits of Krypton, I guess, would fly off and end up landing on Earth. So a bit of a different comics background because it's part comics, but part radio as well. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Chris, have you got any movie background for us?
I have indeed. Yeah, this film was released in 1983, so it was 2 years after Superman 2. It's very much, it's very political and the way it came to screen, actually. The director, obviously, they got rid of Richard Donner halfway through Superman 2 because they were filming 1 and 2 simultaneously. Same producers, so we had the Solkinds, Alexander and Isla Solkind, but due to the way Donner was taken off Superman 2 and they reshot everything with Lester, Gene Hackman and Margot Kidder were really, really upset with the Solkinds. Now, the Solkinds have come out after this, especially in the 2006 DVD re-release, said that simply wasn't the case. Now, Hackman refused point blank to play Lex Luthor, and he stuck by that even to this day. That's why he didn't play Luthor, even though he came back in the fourth one, because the Solkinds were involved in the fourth one, so he reprised his role. And Margot Kidder
shouldn't have.
Yeah, well,
Nuclear Man.
Don't mess with the super hair. But then Margot Kidder, she only actually had 12 lines in the whole film, which, considering the first 2 films were centered around Clark and Lois's relationship, it was quite a weird segue off. And they basically, Solkind said, well, they've told that story of Lois and Clark. We don't need to do it. But I thought she's so underused in the third one. It's ridiculous. And obviously they concentrate on Lana Lang, don't they? And again, Lana Lang is the same actress who plays Clark's mum in Smallville. She plays Martha Kent. But yeah, it's just a real mess of a film, really. Christopher Reeve wasn't going to play Superman. He flatly refused because of all the problems he'd had with Donner, the way the script went. They actually had a few people lined up to play Superman, which is pretty bad. One of them was Tony Danza. I don't know if you remember him from
yeah.
guy.
That would have been a different movie.
Yeah, well, basically, he came in at the last minute, Christopher Reeve, and said, look, I'll play it if I can have some sort of control over the scripts. Now, to be fair, he was very, very critical of this film, Christopher Reeve. In his biography, he actually says what had happened was when they wrote the original Superman, he was very much based on, he was very slapstick. So what he wasn't happy with was the way they were trying to segue in. Well, Superman 3, they were trying to segue in Richard Pryor constantly, for gags and that. And he actually says, and I'm going to quote him now, Richard Lester in the original Superman, it was all gags. He was going to have a bit where Superman was looking for Lex Luthor, who's got a bald head. And then Superman grabs a bald-headed guy in the middle of Metropolis who turns round and he's Telly Savalas Kojak, and turns around and gives him a lollipop and goes, "Who loves you, baby?" So luckily, Richard Donner came in the first two and just stopped all this stupid slapstick nonsense. And basically, as I was saying, Chris Reeve actually says, and I quote, he was looking for gags, sometimes to the point where the gag involved Richard Pryor went over the top. I mean, I didn't think his going off the top of a building on skis with a pink tablecloth around his shoulders was particularly funny. And he totally... the screenplay was originally by David and Leslie Newman. That's why Donner got involved and rewritten it. And he had a guy called Tom Malkovich who actually rewrote Superman 1 and 2. But because Malkovich and Richard Donner were involved in the third one, that's also why you got the 3-minute intro and slapstick intro. That wasn't in space like the others. It was the first... And out of them 4 films, it was the only Superman film that didn't involve a nuclear bomb or nuclear warhead or something along them lines, you know, because the rest of them did. It went away, and it was something Christopher Reeve was really settled. He just was not happy with it because he said it was actually bordering on the 1960s Batman stuff, some of the slapstick gags. So I can get that. I certainly can get that. Now, there is an extended version. Maybe I'll buy both of you the DVD version and send it you as Christmas presents then.
That would be lovely.
That's the sort of guy. I'm not going to go into song again, but I'm just telling you.
Although I feel one coming on.
At the box office, it was a hit. They did make money on it. It was a $39 million budget, which they made 59 worldwide. But again, it was the 12th highest grossing film in 1983. It was nowhere near as successful as the first two. Now, critically, he got absolutely roasted. 25% it's out on Rotten Tomatoes. And at the moment, it's at 44. Out of 44 user reviews, it's at 4.5 out of 10. Robert Vaughn was slated as a poor man's Lex Luthor because obviously they couldn't get Gene Hackman. And because Richard Lester had done stuff like The Beatles, A Hard Day's Night, The Three Musketeers is why he got hired for Superman 2. Now, the slapstick stuff just did not settle well. The only thing that came out of praise for it was Christopher Reeve's playing 2 Supermans. You know, that's a high point of the film. And a couple... of the gags with Richard Pryor, he was praised for his portrayal, but I'm sure we'll get into that in the reviews. And yeah, that's it, guys. That's what I've got today for the old movie reviews.
Very good. So, should we get into our review then?
Let's go.
Do it.
Right, so the film starts. We get this, as I mentioned in the movie background, we get this slapstick intro where there's so many coincidences and things going wrong. It's unbelievable, but most of it centers around the blonde lady who's got a wiggle and a walk. Who we don't know who she is at the moment. All we know is that she's Billy Connolly's missus. She's Pamela Stevenson. And she's walking around, and it all seems to centre around her and a blind guy with a guide dog, which I don't know if you're going to get away with that in 2018.
Oh, God, no.
But, it's just the comedy of errors. And one thing with this film, which I find really bizarre, and there's a few bits later on, is I don't know if you guys have noticed already, but they've recycled a character at the slapstick bit straight away from the second film. I don't know if you've picked up on that. But...
All right, no.
Now, you know the guy who basically gets most of the abuse. He ends up with the pie in the face. He ends up down the hole and all that stuff. Well, he's a very famous actor called Golden Rawlins. Now, he always played in the 60s and 70s a drunk in like cowboy films and 70s, always a drunk. Well, in Superman 2, he's the one when General Zod walks on water, gets out of the water, he's fishing. And he stands there dumbfounded, and it's the same guy.
I think you might have mentioned that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in our episode. Now he's in it. I might as well get this out of the way now. In fact, I'll say it later on. But there's 2 other characters that are in the same series of films, which I just find bizarre that they just blatantly recycled them. Especially him. He's had quite a prominent role in Superman 2. I mean, it's not from the realms of fantasy that he couldn't be in Metropolis for all this, but it's a hell of a gig for him.
I don't think they're really that bothered about continuity in this film. Just a hunch.
What did you think of all this, Mike?
Well, they did manage to sneak some slapstick into Superman 2. I don't really remember there being much of it in Superman 1, like if at all, really. But I remember there's that one scene during Zod and the others kind of using their strong breaths on Metropolis, and there's a guy in a phone booth who just will not get off the phone. And, it's the 70s, very early 80s. Slapstick's fine. I don't mind a little bit of it here and there. And it was kind of like, I get it. Metropolis, huh? Life in the big city. But it was like somebody watched that one bit and thought to themselves, man, that's what Superman needs more of. More slapstick, more shtick.
Yeah, we need guys with their wigs blowing off, ice creams splashing into their faces. We need more of that.
It's like that's what the budget was used on.
Yeah.
Was slapstick.
I mean, I will give a quick plug. So episodes 1 and 2, we go into Superman 1 and 2, funnily enough. And it's actually, in researching the movie, it was really interesting, but they did change directors. So Richard Donner, they were trying to shoot both movies at the same time. And they ended up running out of budget. They ended up using pieces from what was supposed to be the second movie in the first movie because, they just wanted to get it out there, get the cash flow going. And they brought in this guy, Richard Lester, who had to reshoot a lot of the scenes. And so it's Lester's scenes that you'll recognize as the slapstick bits, where the tone is completely different. And then, so you've got kind of half the film for Superman 2 being that Richard Lester influence. And then he's the one looking after Superman 3, and he's just carried that on and just dialed it up to 11.
It's not even good slapstick, though.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I've seen slapstick slapstick isn't something that is like, it's good or bad based on when it was made. Like good slapstick is good slapstick. That's why people still love Buster Keaton stuff. You go and look at that stuff, and like some of it was incredibly dangerous. You couldn't make it now, but it's still like really funny, and it's like really well done. But this is just rubbish. It's just really, really rubbish.
If you're going to do slapstick, you've got to have that.
Yeah.
And then have Sid James going, ha, ha,
ha. Well, but the thing is, though, as well, I'm a big Laurel and Hardy fan and Norman Wisdom, and I can watch them and know what's coming, and I can still laugh at it, and I agree. I mean, the stuff with the blind guy, like, it's allegedly he picks up a road marking thing, then penguins get set on fire, and, we get introduced to Superman who blows the fire off the finger. And then I've got to say, guys, that scene, and I never doubted it, I've never questioned it in my life, but that bit where the robber slides down from the bank, the cops are chasing him, he just blindly shoots where these pedestrians and innocent people, but he decides just to fire a couple of shots at him anyway, at the robber, who runs off, and then we get the car crash. Why did nobody smash the glass in that car?
That whole bit was so, like, how I thought it was going to be like a really funny setup, because it's like one thing led into another and into another, and then there was like the penguins, and then all of a sudden it just fucking cuts to a bank robbery. It's like they had an idea to set up this really intricate thing, and they just went, oh, fuck it, we'll just do a bank robbery, and a guy gets stuck in a car. So it's like they were all just completely separate little slapstick pieces, but I thought that they could at least try to like make it all one big thing. And the worst bit about this is, it's like just to see Christopher Reeves as his first act as being Superman awkwardly climb on top of a car and then struggle to take this prop roof off and just fucking throw it very humanly away. Yeah. While there was like this kind of like sound effect in the back. I was like rubbing my hands together like, oh boy, Here we go.
You know what, mate? I swear to God, I totally agree, because as someone who loves, I've probably watched this as much as I love Superman 2 and I give it an Asgard. That's my favourite Superman film. Love the General Zod bit, everything. The redemption of Superman. I love all that stuff, you know. And that's like my formula. I said this in the podcast loads of times. I love a formula where the hero gets beaten or he's down, and then come as well, like the Rocky films, you know, come from adversity and they come back. Probably everyone does, but it's just a formula that I love. And this was just absolutely true. And when he did that, I must have been when I watched it yesterday, and he pulled the sunroof off. I was just like, and even pulling him out of the car on the bonnet and shakes his hand, and it was like, this is terrible. It's absolutely. And I've never watched it for them reviewing eyes and thought, what the hell is going on here? I mean, and then you get him when he throws the pie in the guy's face. Well, why didn't he knock him over? I couldn't understand that. It's Superman, isn't it? He spins round, and as Pamela Stevenson's going past him, and that guy gets a pie in his face, and it was like, oh, this it's just atrocious now when you watch it. It really is.
It really is like a total mess as well. Like that, you know, they could have made the whole film like that, but there's some oddly dark bits in this film as well. So I you know, it's one of these films where there's no, obviously there was like one director, but there was no cohesive vision about what was being said in this film. Like this is a like a proper studio film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all over the place. Yeah. And I have to say, I think this opening scene for me, it's as if, you know, they've got writers in a writer's room and they've all written on little bits of paper about 10 ideas and then thrown them across the room and then picked up a number of them and just said, right, we'll use those. Because it's all just random nonsense.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think I'm on the other side of the table from you two, because even though I know this is terrible, and even though I know I'm kind of looking at this with nostalgic lenses for sure, I can't help but smile. It is terrible, and it's just. What I did think is they don't make movies like this anymore.
No. Well, you know, that's
a good reason.
I was thinking of things that I wanted to kind of like say about this film yesterday, and one of the things that really stuck with me was there are films that kind of really sum up the decade or the year that they were made in, and like what the sensibilities were like at the time, and you know what you know, it's usually like a mainstream film because it's like what does the mainstream audience want, and this film feels like it's like the Batman versus Superman, but in the early 80s. It was like, what happens to a film back then when it's like you've got all these differing ideas and stuff like that, and you know that they're trying to tick the boxes of what needs to go in these films, but they just make a complete fucking hash of it. And I really feel like this is like a kind of a time capsule for like big budget blockbuster filmmaking back in the early 80s this came out. Am I right in that?
Yeah.
83. Yeah.
One thing I did pick up on this, and I don't know whether you guys, and it didn't distract me, but it was something that was always there in the background, is Christopher Reeve's hair in the film. Now, I don't know why, because he had in the first two films, his hair is black. In this one, it's brown.
Yeah.
Wearing a wig in this one, which I just find bizarre. He refused to dye his hair, which I thought his hair was brown anyway. So I don't understand what's going on there. But he's got, his head looks like a Lego head, basically. He's got like an Action Man haircut, and he all the way through. It's like really, it's really distracting, especially when he's in the Superman suit.
What's more distracting, Christopher Reeve's hair in this, or Henry Cavill's CGI face?
Mustache. Yeah, fair point.
I'll take that brown hair any day.
Yeah. I do have to say, you know, I'm sure we'll have plenty of negative points because this movie is a bit of a mess. But I think Christopher Reeve he still puts in a pretty decent performance.
Yeah.
Oh, he's still a man. He saves this film without a doubt.
Totally.
Top man, Christopher Reeve, great actor. Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. Totally with you.
Just so much charisma, effortless. Really is.
But yeah, you're right, Mike. I mean, it is a bit of a time capsule where it's okay to stare at blonde, busty ladies and okay to laugh at blind people.
No, yeah, it is. And it was one thing that I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but speaking of the I can't remember even the character's name in it. The blonde bimbo of sorts, the serviceable 80s blonde bimbo, a proper trope.
So Billy Connolly's wife.
That's it. Yeah. Jeez. What the fuck is her name? Yeah. Gee, I feel like I'm in the 80s now.
Let me IMDb it.
Yeah. Like I really enjoyed those little moments where you actually find out that this is actually an incredibly intelligent, competent woman, but she's just like playing a part. And it's really annoying that they didn't actually do anything with it. It's like, because, again, with the time capsule thing, I know that the people making the film were thinking isn't it ironic that the blonde bimbo is actually really smart? And they didn't actually do anything with it.
Yeah.
Whereas
Lorelai, you were disserviced in this film, and I think your character should have been given more to do. Yeah, and you're right, aren't you? Because I mean, I thought that was a nice little play that she's dumbing it down. But to be honest, given the rest of the film, it was probably done as a joke.
Yeah. It was like a stereotypical blonde, wasn't it? Which is bad, but that's obviously around the 80s and stuff. They depicted, weren't they? But she was the one who got the kryptonite, the idea of the kryptonite. She knew the bit where
that scene.
The Bone walks in, isn't there, and she's reading some like quantum physics book or something. She hides it very quickly because she's a very, very clever girl, isn't she? She's obviously just after this guy for his money.
Yeah, I like that. That was one of my favourite little elements in the film. Obviously, they were never going to do anything with it. Thinking about when the film was made and stuff like that, but it frustrates me sometimes in a film where like there's like a little element that they put in, and I kind of go, you should have gotten the blood from that stone. You could have gotten more out of that.
Yeah.
So one of the other time capsule things from this movie as well is that in the 80s, if you had about half an hour at computer school, you can then become the world's greatest hacker.
Yeah.
And computers can do pretty much anything. And we saw this in Weird Science as well. That, with a computer, you can conjure up a bit of Kelly Brook there. And so this is where we're introduced to Richard Pryor's character, Gus Gorman. And it was interesting to look at some of those old computers, but I couldn't quite figure out why was he such a good computer hacker. He just didn't seem to have any real background in computers at all. But suddenly he's able to, he works for this huge faceless kind of corporation, and he manages to do a bit of what they call salami slicing. So, you take a little bit off everyone's savings or off everyone's wages, and no individual person would notice. And you end up just pocketing all that cash.
Now, Mike, me and Dave spoke about this before we recorded. Statistically, for him to take $85,000 off every employee at that firm, they would have had 17 million employees. So the contribution at all. That is genuine. I mean, Dave knew it when we were talking about it. You said it, Dave, didn't you? I genuinely thought that was absolutely an atrocious something you don't really think of, but to rip them off like that for half a cent, it's like, come on. You really could. I mean, if you take it off everyone worldwide, then fair enough, but not a company. It was a bit thin on the ground, that.
What you mean? You think it was obvious that he'd get caught? Yeah,
and also the actual context of how he made his money. Like it was just like, it's like when you say, when we've done these reviews and you're being teed up too easy, it was all too neat, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How he got in with Robert Vaughan's character, and it was just too. I don't know. It was just. I can't explain it. It was too apparent and too obvious. Sometimes, if it's too obvious, it's not. It can be a good writing, and other times it can just be pretty poor. And I thought this was a really bad segue, to be honest.
It's interesting you say that, because I remember as a kid thinking, that's a great idea.
No, I did. Exactly the same. And what about you, Mike? I was exactly the same as a kid. I've never slagged this film off ever, but watching it this time, it's a hard watch, I must admit.
Yeah, I am. Oh, by the way, sorry about that. My dog is very sensitive about plot contrivances. And we really set him off. I really, this is a film that I really I had a real nostalgic haze about this film for the longest time, and I knew that I was gonna pick it apart when I watched it recently, but I didn't realize it was just like, let's put it this way, this film, I'm not somebody that I can take a plot contrivance here and there, as long as the film itself, what the story wants to do and what the film wants to say is kind of still together. But this is not a film interested in details. This is especially with the stuff with computers, it this film sounds like it's like the reefer madness of people worried about computers. It's like they don't know anything about them, but they're worried about what they can do. And they can do a lot.
Yeah, they can control satellites, and which satellites apparently control the weather.
I mean, just I will say this much: they kind of explain they explain enough where, if you're enjoying the film, you can kind of go, "Oh, okay, the satellite can control the weather because he's hacked the satellite." Okay, fine. On to the next scene. It's explained.
I must admit, I mean, even as a kid, I couldn't wrap my head around that. Even as a kid, I'm thinking, how does a satellite control the weather?
But more importantly, guys, I am someone who is a massive American muscle car fan, and I've got them plastered all over my wall in front of me. How the heck, when Robert Vaughan's talking to his accountant friend, can he hear a Ferrari 328 GTS from what probably is the 60th floor up? And he's going, no, surely somebody won't be that stupid to, get away with it. They'll just hide in the background because they've stolen this money. And then he actually looks over the side of the top of the building. Bear in mind, he's in the penthouse, and he can hear this Ferrari. I was thinking, oh my word, what is going on here? It's just like, I've never doubted it. I've never questioned it in all the years of watching it. But this time I was like, and he can actually see Gus Gorman getting out of the Ferrari. That's how good his eyesight is. It was just like, oh, this is ridiculous.
I think old Gus Gorman was using the old precursor to the Dumb and Dumber suits as well, wasn't he? That blue suit with what the hell was the point in the 10-gallon hat? Again, it served no purpose other than probably it's just a visual gag. You've probably got Richard Lester laughing his head off behind the camera. Look at that, it's Richard Pryor in a 10-gallon hat.
Terrible. I mean, because obviously this whole thing is where you've got the cheap version of John Candy and his wife who've won a trip to Mexico or Colombia, because he wants a coffee, doesn't he? They go, the satellite comes in, decimates the holiday. The bride and groom take a dive and they have a load of bricks falling on them at a wedding in a church. So they're wiped out straight away. They don't have any bricks on them, but come back to Metropolis after Perry White with a cast on one arm, something around the neck. They've severely injured themselves. And we get introduced then, obviously, to Lana Lang, don't we? Because Clark's gone back to Smallville for a high school reunion. Before that, we get Jimmy and him, don't they, go into Smallville because he says, I'm going back for this reunion. And we get the chemical plant on fire.
Yeah. And apparently water puts out chemical fires.
Oh, my God. You're right.
Strange. Yeah.
I only just really realised just how silly that is. No, it wasn't to put out the chemicals. It was to cool them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a busy. I mean, it served a plot purpose, doesn't it? As we know later on in the film. But my word, the fact that he froze a lake and then just brought the lake to the party, I thought it was just.
So I have to say, right? I loved it as a kid. Still love it a bit too much now. No, you don't know what I'm going to say. Is dunking my digestives into my cup of tea and then holding it up and then watching in despair as it just falls off my fingers into the cup of tea. And I'm thinking, how does he, even if he freezes the top of that lake, how is that little Superman figure holding that whole frozen lake and it not dropping off into the ocean with my, again, my childlike experience of my biscuit dropping off into my tea?
He's right on the edge of that ice sheet as well.
Yeah.
With his little hands. This has been explained in the comics. It's a proper contrivance for me. I think people should use it more often as actually a plot device that Superman can't just pick up a fucking building. And you know what I mean? Like, it's obviously that doesn't work. But apparently there is like some telekinesis that he has where when he picks up something enormous, the physics of pressure per square centimeter or whatever do not apply to Superman when he picks something up, which is fucking nonsense.
That is a reach, or that is a stretch, I have to say.
It is fucking nonsense.
It's not even explained. I mean, Mike, I wouldn't mind what you've just said makes some sort of logical sense in the DC universe and the Superman universe, but it's not even explained, is it, in the film? It's just like, oh, well, he can do that, and that's accepted. I mean, he couldn't rip a sunroof off an old Chevy.
Fumbling.
Classic, an absolute classic. It really is. And obviously, around this segment is really the only time we really see Lois Lane, don't we? Margot, she just says, I'm going to, is it Bermuda or something? Shows Clark a bikini, doesn't he? And that's like her sort of, she's just off then till the end of the film.
Yeah, that whole thing was so strange.
It's really bizarre. I mean, I don't know. It's such a shame. She could have really worked alongside Lana or something. But yeah, because we meet Lana, don't we? We've got the.
Sorry, Chris. Can I just jump in? But wasn't this around the time that she was really having her problems, where she was like pretty much homeless, and I thought she had some real mental health problems around this time.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
That's the story that I've heard. That they wanted her in the film for like sort of credibility, because they couldn't just make her vanish. But to be honest, this is as someone watching the film, this is kind of worse.
Yeah,
because it's just, oh, so here's Lois Lane. She's going to go on holiday, and here's Lana Lang. Isn't she lovely? And it's the sort of thing that happens in a TV show because there was a scheduling conflict, and they're just not in the show that week, but she was in the film. So this is something that I actually do remember, is because when I first watched this, I was kind of like, yay, I wonder what will happen. Like if her and Clark will get together or something, just without her knowing that he's Superman still. And no, sorry, Lois Lane. So yeah, I think a lot of that was wrapped up in the whole, behind the scenes. There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff in this film, and I think that's a big part of it, because I've never seen anything like that since in like a big budget film.
Yeah. Yeah, even Jimmy Olsen's got more lines than her, which is terrible. He's a bad actor in, but yeah, it's you're right. It's a very good point, to be fair, Mike. And then he goes to this dance. We get introduced to the odious Brad, who's obviously some ex-high school jock who's just a deadbeat, who's living on the past, isn't he? And, he obviously loves Lana, but hates Clark. Now, one thing I wanted to note with this section as well is this bit where Lana has got a kid and she's also a single parent. That's something that they actually wrote a comic for that before the film come out quickly to justify why she was not with anybody, as a husband, or why she had a kid. So they actually wrote a comic panels regarding this just to tie in with the film. So I'm not saying he was a bestseller because I'm not a comic book fan, but that's something they actually wrote after the film was about to come out.
God, that's nuts, isn't it?
Mm.
Lana Lang was created by Bill Finger.
How was it?
Yeah. Do you remember who Bill Finger is?
You mentioned him before, Dave. It's something to do with... It's on one of the other episodes, I don't know. You've said him before and I can't remember.
This is ringing a bell.
Not something to do with Marvel, is he, Dave?
So Bill Finger was the guy who's basically screwed over by Bob Kane for the Batman creation.
That was it, yeah.
Bob Kane was, he'd created Batman and he was this it was just a Superman knockoff. And Bill Finger was the writer who basically, suggested the cowl and the gloves and all this sort of stuff. But he got royally screwed over by Bob Kane, and Kane was the one who came out with all the credit for years and years. And it's only in fairly recent years that Bill Finger's been recognised for his role in it. And I just I bring it up because when we discussed this, I'm sure you said is he mates with Paul Meyer or something like that. But anyway, yeah. So he created Lana Lang.
Yeah. Well. I suppose it's one of them things. Lana's there, there's a bit of Clark. And the only thing I don't know about you guys, but the one thing that always sets me up with that scene and really bugs me is why no one eats the potato salad.
That is my first port of call.
And then Clark comes in with, there might be a bit too much garlic in there or something, you know what I mean? Or mayo, he says, doesn't he? But yeah, it's a bit of a reach. And one thing it did get a bit of a notoriety for was they use a young Christopher Reeve on the high school pictures where they don't use the same guy from Superman 1.
Oh, with his wig.
Yeah, with his wig. I know it's not the end of the world, but it's something that continuity-wise, he's not even... They don't even... Basically, like what you said, Mike, they don't even care in this one.
No. It's not like a... They're not building an expanded universe here. These films are all so separate. That's fine.
So again, going back to this time capsule term that I can't shake from my mind now. So don't forget, there's no Netflix at this time. And, traditionally, it's only about now where you're getting the VHS and the Betamax videos and people are watching a lot more movies at home. But, in the 60s and 70s, you'd have to go back to the cinema, wouldn't you, to watch it?
Yeah.
So I wonder if, that idea of continuity is probably only developed after this movie's been made.
That's a very, very good point. I think so. People are so much more readily, it's so easy now to pull a film apart because you could just, I don't know who's doing this, but they're out there doing it clearly. It's just going through all the scenes and kind of going, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not right. But I think you've probably got better things that you could do with your day, to be honest. But it's probably quite fun to notice these things. Like I remember one of my favorite, in continuity errors is in Star Wars: A New Hope, where a stormtrooper hits his head.
Oh, that was brilliant.
And then George Lucas added a little sound effect. I think that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It's like a nod within a nod, isn't it? So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got me.
Well, one thing with Richard Pryor, obviously, because what they said with this one was this was actually the first Superman film billed as Christopher Reeve as the star, because the other two was Marlon Brando featuring Christopher Reeve or Gene Hackman featuring Christopher Reeve as Superman. This one was just purely Christopher Reeve. Now, Richard Pryor, obviously, he's basically I suppose he gets the same amount of airtime as Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando just winged it in the first one, but he gets the same amount of airtime probably as Lex Luthor on screen. But he actually said he only accepted the role because he thought the screenplay was terrible because he got $5 million for it. Now, question marks have got to be asked. These who's the silly one? Sure, he wasn't doing this skimming thing, Dave, because he was doing it.
Well, he had a raging cocaine habit to keep on top of, didn't he?
I thought you were going to say I had a raging somewhere else, then, Dave. No.
Well, that probably goes with the coke, but
was this so? Richard Pryor has had like his career is just all over the place in terms of like what kind of version of Richard Pryor you got. This was before he got really bad, I think. Was it? Was this like during... Yeah, this was kind of like the peak when he was still pushing it really hard and stuff like that, which makes so much sense because, I mean, it's just bananas to me to insert... I love Richard Pryor, but he doesn't belong in a fucking Superman film.
No.
And also, this is actually a very bad version of Richard Pryor. They got him doing slapstick and things like that. And Richard Pryor is funny when he's being like
Gene Wilder, isn't he?
Raucous and exactly. Yeah, don't put Richard Pryor with fucking Christopher Reeves. Put him with Gene Wilder.
Well, it's not stir crazy, is it?
No. Oh well, no.
I like See No Evil, Hear No Evil. All of that.
Oh yeah.
Great film. But no, you're right, Mike. And I think as well, because it's set predominantly for a family audience, it's very difficult for his humour. If you've ever seen any of his stand-up, there's F-bombs going off all over. I'm not saying that comes across in the films, but some of the films, there is swearing in that, and I think that brings his character along because being a bit more real in this. He is, like you say, Dave, you're right. He's like a hosed-down version and not a good one. I mean, talk about dialing it in. He's dialing it in from the other side of his bedroom with the door shut while he's having a kip because it's just like he really isn't putting much into this performance at all as Gus Gorman. He just sort of moseys along, doesn't he? And you can understand Christopher Reeve's frustration, I suppose, when you look back now.
Yeah.
Almost at the level of Marlon Brando, is it?
Oh, my.
In terms of phoning it in.
Yeah.
Poor Christopher Reeve. He's like this incredible, charismatic Superman. Like, no one's ever topped his Superman. I actually don't know if anyone ever will. And he's just there, just like, oh, Marlon Brando's drunk again. Richard Pryor, fucking hell. Oh, I've got to go up against Nuclear Man, do I? Although, to be fair, I think that was actually Christopher Reeve's idea. Because he really wanted to push the whole nuclear angle in that fourth one, didn't he?
Yeah. And I think you might have to come back for the fourth one, Mike, because...
Oh, please, yes.
Definitely. I'm trying to think where we're up to now. So we get the whole... I'll tell you what scene I wanted to bring up, guys, if you don't mind, is the bowling scene with the lad, where, Brad's there being an absolute...
Tool.
Thanks for that, Dave. I was nearly went X-rated, but and I still don't get how Superman can sneeze and only knock the ball. He doesn't knock anybody over. Do you know what I mean? You've got Brad and the lad in front of him, and he doesn't knock him over, but he knocks the ball over.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
What a broken-bodied kid has just crumpled up.
Decimates the whole bowling alley. Lana Lang's just screaming.
He's now gone from PG to an 18 in just one fail over the nose. But yeah, it makes no sense at all, does it? I mean, I always loved that scene, but he teaches Brad a lesson. But my word, it's terrible.
Well, that's like a little wish fulfillment scene for children, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wish Superman could help me out with my bowling. Yeah, that's to be fair, that's like, yeah, it's a bit contrived and stuff, but that's I think some of my favorite bits in this film was just Clark Kent sneakily being Superman. I quite like that. That's one of my favorite types of Superman things, is him having to be covert with his powers. So yeah, I liked that. And also, 8-year-old me seeing this for the first time, that was wish fulfillment big time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. It's just daft, isn't it? Because the laws of physics and logic just go out the window.
Well, you guys know how I feel about that now.
I mean, he does rescue the little lad as well, doesn't he? From the what do they call the corn cutting?
Wait, what the fuck happened to that kid again? I was actually pretty confused about what happened. Did he just?
I think he just fell over and hit his head on a rock. They don't show you any of that. They just get to see, Superman sees that, he's out in the middle of the cornfield and he's about to become sliced up like I don't know, salami slicing is what we were talking about before. And then he just, manages to change into his Superman gear and goes and saves him.
Yeah.
The whole... Listen, Clark, you don't need to get into the Superman gear.
Yeah.
Just run over there. He's not that far away.
No, but he is, though, isn't he? Because Superman's had to fly him back. That's what makes it laugh.
How far away did that kid get?
He's
2 minutes.
He was having a bit of the old potato salad because Lana's obviously got a VAT load in the boot of the car. And then he thought, you know what? I'm going to go for a 5-mile run and just burn this baby off. And he ends up miles away in the split second. And then, the dog's barking. And I must admit, it's a reach around, to say at least. It's like me reaching from the bottom of the Empire State Building for us not to realise that he's Superman, because they're in the middle of a harvested field. Clark's there, and Superman appears. Where's Clark? At least with the Niagara Fall one in Superman 2, it was slightly believable that he might be there. You know what I mean? And then obviously Lois says you're Superman. We get all the bit where she falls in Niagara Falls. But this was a really bad reach, this one. It really...
having watched Full Metal Jacket, I think your understanding of what a reach around is, Chris, is different to what mine is. I don't remember seeing a reach around.
Listen, the phrase "a reach around" existed before all this. Get your heads out of the gutter.
Yeah, Dave, what you two don't know, and you've never watched it, it's part of the Richard Donner cut. It's what a reach around is. I'm still taking that till you watch it, but yeah.
Was that the whole line around, what was it Lex Luthor said about his Liberace record having a scratch on it or something?
Yeah.
That was supposed to be code or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's supposed to be code, but yeah. You guys is obviously uneducated, but I'm still sticking with my reach around anyway.
Well, you know what? Do you know who wouldn't have picked that out? Is sweet, innocent Lana Lang. And
Exactly.
of course she wouldn't have noticed, because she's just a simple, small-town gal. And you know what? She doesn't know about all this big city business like Lois Lane. And gosh darn it, Clark Kent, he's smitten.
It sounds like you are as well, Mike.
I've got a lot of time for Lana Lang.
I could sense all of the gooiness.
I've got to say there, though, Mike, you missed an opportunity with this being a musical episode. I thought you were going to go into Journey then, Don't Stop Believing. It was like, she's just a small-town girl.
I don't know if anyone wants an impromptu song from me.
I do.
Superman, help me.
You're my only hope. Yeah, but,
No place like home.
but then we get the... which again is a bit of a weird scene. We get Superman's receiving an award in here for, services rendered. And then we get, Gus Gorman, he's already hit, bear in mind, when he went to Smallville and did the supercomputer thing with Brad, didn't he, and offered him a load of beer. He actually hit him, Superman, with the car door, didn't he? But then the same guy turns up as a colonel giving him a present with that weird cyborg sister of Ross Webster. It was just totally bizarre.
I was totally confused. So, leading up to this, that's where they managed to find out what the composition of kryptonite is, but there's this missing piece out of it. And again, I thought it was just strange. I don't know about you guys, but do you remember all the adverts, like the anti-smoking adverts that Superman used to be in as a kid?
Oh, that's one of my favorite adverts. Is because the animation in it is absolutely phenomenal. But to answer your question, yes.
Yeah. I can still remember them now. But, was it in Superman 1 or 2? I think it's 2, isn't it, where he gets thrown into the Marlboro truck and here, he's smoking and he just looks and he sees tar. Yeah, that seems like a good thing to add in for our unknown substance. And I just thought it was just strange to put in, cigarettes anywhere in the storyline so prominently in a Superman movie when the character is so anti-smoking.
Well, I mean, geez, you saw how many times 7-Eleven popped up in Man of Steel, and all this is the dirty secret of filmmaking is that you get a lot of adverts in it. But yeah, obviously, early 80s, no one knew how bad smoking was for you really back then, and people were
not
still
publicly anyway.
No, not publicly. Oh God, right? So yeah, it didn't surprise me at all to see that. Does James Bond smoke anymore? I don't think he does.
No, he doesn't.
No.
To be fair, you've got to think of it from a normal point of view, from an actual non-film. And we even had a John Player special Capri. So, that was early 80s as well. So I'd like to say I agree, Dave, but they weren't there. Even, we had darts, didn't we, smoking and drinking and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know it's a different country to the US, but I'm sure it was the same.
I just thought it was strange. But again, anyway, so he decides he's got this unknown substance. So puts tar in there. And I have to say, as a kid, this whole thing about plastics confused the hell out of me as to whether I was supposed to be laughing at it or not. Was it supposed to be funny? And I'd forgotten about it. And then obviously rewatching it this time, I'm still baffled. Is it supposed to be funny?
I don't know.
I think they just told Richard Pryor to just riff,
Ad-lib.
do what he wanted. Yeah. A lot of what happens in this just feels like the director just went to Richard Pryor. Oh, I just love your stuff. Just do you.
Knock yourself out,
but don't swear.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. Actually, I think from both of you, I think you're right. I think Richard Lester was probably absolutely crapping it, thinking, I don't know what to do with him. Well, we're paying him all this money. He's probably under pressure from the studio. Just let him do whatever he wants. Get his scenes out of the way and get him out of here and let's see what we can salvage. Because that just made no sense at all, did it? The way it was teed up for him with the old dodgy kryptonite and that was really bizarre. And he knocked over all the people who were there celebrating Superman as well, which is a bit weird. But it does lead into what I've got to say, guys. And I know I've slagged the film off so far, like in a jokey way, but this leads into, to me, the best part of the film when we get the whole baddie Superman.
So amazing.
He's amazing. Especially, and straight away, he's back at Lana Lang's and he's got a bit of eyeliner on and a bit of
He's got the Man of Steel Superman suit on all of a sudden.
His suit's got a bit darker, just randomly.
And before his time. This was before Zack Snyder got anywhere near it.
He's like, oh my God, the phone's gone. There's a lorry hanging over the side of a bridge and blah, blah. And he's like, I always have time. Yeah, here we go. And I do like this. I love this alter ego of Superman. And to be fair, it felt years ago, even when I've watched it, that he was in it for a lot longer. But realistically, he's only a baddie Superman for about 15 minutes. But that says, for me personally, Christopher Reeve's performance and also how the rest of the film's quite forgettable because this whole baddie Superman thing's amazing.
I'm with you completely. I just think absolutely best bit of the film. And we've spoken in the past, haven't we, that there's no one does that duality between Superman and Clark Kent like Christopher Reeves does.
No way. Yeah.
And add that third one, drunk evil Superman, lecherous Superman, he just looks so different. Just his body shape. I don't know what it is he's doing, but he just looks like a different person.
He's a great actor. It's a shame that he didn't get to do much. Like, I mean, even beyond the accident that he had, he was typecast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the guy was a fucking amazing actor. You know, it's a shame that he was so stuck to these films. I think that there is. I'm not sure if it's because of these films that this rule exists in Hollywood now. But if an actor plays the same role 3 times, if they play that role a 4th time, they get an enormous increase on what they're paid. And I think it was because of what happened to Christopher Reeve in terms of the typecasting.
Right.
Wow, that's really interesting.
The rule exists. I know that much. I'm not sure if 100% if it was because of Christopher Reeve. It is. I mean, he's one of him, Mark Hamill, and I'm sure there are other examples, but people that were just,
Ken Barlow?
my fucking brain switched off then. You hit the off switch.
Sorry.
Just had a reboot.
So that must kick in a lot for the MCU guys then. Well,
this is something that happened with Henry Cavill, where he was supposed to have a cameo in Shazam, which would have been his 4th appearance as Superman.
Okay.
And do you remember all that funny business about, Henry Cavill is out as Superman?
Yeah.
It was a lot of it. Well, the speculation is that was like his agent and the producers over at Warner Brothers basically having a little bit of a battle, kind of saying, because Henry Cavill said, I'm not going to do the Shazam cameo because he was like kicking up a fuss, basically. You know, this is all studio nonsense, but a big part of it was basically around, I think, him wanting more money because he's Superman, which is an enormous, it's a pretty big deal playing Superman. Mm-hmm. And I think he wanted to get some more dosh, potentially. But yeah, that's the kind of the rough kind of behind the scenes behind that.
Right, okay.
It's a brilliant explanation of that, Mike. I never heard that. And I think, to be fair, it ties into one of my favourite superhero characters is in Wolverine, because I think it goes the other way. He's played Wolverine in about 7 or 8 films, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ryan Reynolds wants him to play him again, doesn't he, in some version or another, in a Deadpool sort of film, even if it's just a quick cameo, because he's always like the good mates and stuff, ribbing each other.
Yeah.
But I think Hugh Jackman also, in my opinion at the moment, as much as I love Wolverine, he's probably damaged the Wolverine character, because who's going to take him on after that? I mean, Christopher Reeve, it took, we had Brandon Roth, but Christopher Reeve, even now at 40 years old, he's my Superman. And I like him. I really do. I think he's great in Man of Steel and that. But for me, Christopher Reeve, and I think that's what's going to happen with Wolverine. They're just going to always go back to Logan, which is probably his best performance as Wolverine.
I mean, everyone keeps on saying Tom Hardy, but I think that in the spirit of how these iconic characters are cast, they should go for someone new. They should take a chance on someone. And, the problem with taking a chance on someone new and then filling that role amazingly is they do get typecast. Unless you are Hugh Jackman. Henry Jackman.
I thought you discovered someone new who you were trying to plug there, Mike. Henry Jackman.
There's a guy out there called Henry Jackman. He'll be perfect.
Is that his brother? Or...
Oh my gosh, sorry. But yeah, Hugh Jackman has not been stung by that, though. Hugh Jackman's been fine. He's done so many other amazing roles outside of that character. So yeah, I'd go for someone completely new. There's someone out there. You'll find them. Just look. It's a little bit difficult, but fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I know we're segueing off here, and it's mainly down to me. Sorry about this, Dave. But I do struggle. One person I do struggle with watching typecast is Daniel Craig now, because I watched him in that Logan's Lucky, and I hated it because he was playing like a blonde prisoner with Adam Driver in it, obviously Kylo Ren, and he's always going to be James Bond for me because he's actually up there with Roger Moore's my favourite James Bond. So I find it really difficult to watch him in other films and stuff now. I really do. So I think that you've made a great point there, Mike.
It's like Martin Freeman, isn't it? You know, he's supposed to be this kick-ass pilot in Black Panther, but really it's just Tim from The Office.
Yeah, I cannot not see Tim from The Office. In The Hobbit, it was just Tim from The Office. in Lord of the Rings. Totally. Someone just they're just so perfect as that character. It's very difficult to see them as anything else. Which is why, you know, as much as you don't want it to happen, and you know, obviously for certain reasons it should happen, like, you know, the whole sort of like separate the art from the artist. You can't sometimes, but it's like if somebody does something like naughty outside of their acting career, and I'm not even saying anything like really bad, but you find someone to drugs or something like that, and they play like a sort of a character on like a Disney show or something, their career's fucked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like
James Gunn.
James Gunn, and that's definitely something that, like, you know, obviously there's it's like a real grey area there. And, you know, it's fucking terrible, shitty, rubbish jokes that he made. Obviously, he'd been watching too much South Park, and I don't think he understood that you have to jump through the hoops when you make jokes like that. And he didn't. He just sort of sent them out there live. But I mean, yeah, people have a hard time separating that from the art that's coming out. And yeah, you know, it's always something to consider. You know, whether you agree with it or not, people, they have a hard time separating it.
I think it's a good little discussion, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, we're 3 Superman films in, and we've done a couple of other things ourselves, haven't we, Dave? So we've done Deadpool 1 and 2. Ryan Reynolds is going to be Deadpool now, and whatever happens, because he played it so well.
Yeah.
Nobody could do that justice. But yeah,
no.
I know we segue, but like this whole section now, we've got, you know, the drunk, nasty, dark, I've not washed my super kit Superman with the dark eyeshadow and that now. And I do like this little bit with him. I think it's bordering on slapstick, but it's not. So you've got the blowing out of the Olympic torch. You've got the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that whole segment is actually from Superman 2. They actually recycled that. That was in Superman 2. I don't know in what context that would have been used in Superman 2, because I just found it bizarre. But that whole bit is actually from that film. It's not filmed. The bit with the guy doing the old, you know, the Italian guy, like,
yeah.
That's obviously filmed. But the actual thing of him straightening it, I don't know how that would have worked in Superman.
Of course, the hair. The hair as well. I remember that.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
I think my favourite bit from this whole bad Superman bit, though, is when he's just sat at the bar and he's flicking peanuts at the bar and everyone's getting a bit upset with him. But I've seen this film so many times, you know, in my younger years. But when I watched it this week, I'm like, why is no one else batting an eyelid that Superman sat at the bar? All the other extras sat at the bar in the back. And everyone's just getting on with having a drink.
It's having a beer, really, a bit of a Jack Daniels or whatever. But one thing I got from this scene, to be fair, which I think Christopher Reeve does really well, when he flicks everything, he then looks at himself in the mirror, and he obviously hates himself, and he then burns the glass because he doesn't want to look himself. And I don't know whether you picked up on that. I thought that was quite a good little bit of acting in amongst this absolute absurdity of this film.
I mean, actually, it was a great bit of practical effects as well. I really liked how the mirror warped. That whole scene. It's oddly effective, isn't it? Like, I love, like, I've got that on my I've saved the screen grab from that of just him sitting at the bar, and it's like even just in one image, like again to come back to Christopher Reeve as an actor, just God, that's Superman just getting wasted.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean. It's like it's quite affecting. Honestly, it's it gets a little bit silly straight afterwards, but that one little scene of him just kind of just being in a shitty mood, just flicking those peanuts and stuff, you know, it's really scary as well. Although no one actually really seems that scared. You know,
Superman's at it again. He's had too much.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's really, you know, like obviously, I don't think they would have ever gone into this sort of thing in this film, but obviously in Batman versus Superman, they kind of talk about like how Superman can't actually be controlled, and you know they do kind of touch on those issues. But in this, it's just, for me, I think I've talked enough about this. I think people probably know by now that I quite like characterization in films. Like, it would have been great if we could have talked to that character a bit more, that version of Superman. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been great to have for him to have kind of said things like, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like saving people all the time. You know, if he'd have just been less of a jerk and just been the less admirable facets of Clark Kent or Superman's personality, there's like a lot you can play around with that. I'm sure they have done in the comics, but I just think it's so funny that they just make Superman just a prick. I was fucking howling when he blew out the Olympic flame, and he was just on that podium, just like mugging off, like, this is bullshit.
He just like rolled out of bed. He was yawning, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's just like, I'll just have a bit of fun with this.
That's it. It's like I would love for them to have done something more with the character, but I actually love what they did anyway. Just I could just see like a room full of writers just being like, oh, and what are some other shitty things that Superman could do?
Yeah, because that was obviously filmed around the 82 Olympics, wasn't it? So it would have been 84. So either way, we must be going up to the 84 Olympics. We're travelling round. But yeah, it was really good. And like, you know, the tanker bit, obviously he goes to the tanker because Lorelei has basically led him on, and she said to him, you know, if you want a bit of action, go and destroy this tanker because it's going off target for Mr. Webster's sort of, big plan. And he goes and destroys it. Now, you know what I mentioned earlier on to you both about recycling characters? Now, the actual captain of the ship is the American president in Superman 4, Quest for Peace, Robert Beatty. But then also, a bit early, you know the guy who's at the bank where he's getting the constant stream of money and he's putting it down his hands?
Oh, yeah.
And then that woman walks past him as if he's actually getting a bit excited as he keeps putting the money down. Well, I kept thinking, where is he? He's the actual deputy in the second one who pulls the gun. You know when he's with the guy out of James Bond, the old sheriff?
Oh, yeah.
He's the deputy. He goes, get your hands up. And they just recycle him. Just like, well, he must be in Metropolis from the deep south of America. He's now gone on working over that side of things. So maybe he's given up being a sheriff after what General Zod did to him and stuff. But yeah, it's just a weird thing that they do. It just, like you say, they don't seem to care in these last couple of films.
Yeah, there was no internet and YouTube there. I guess then picking holes in everything, so they weren't too bothered about using the same actors again and again, I guess. No,
it's really bizarre. And I think as well, you know, this all leads into, you know, Lana's lad is doing the old, you know, Superman, you can be great again, and obviously the inner turmoil of him flying, I think it's I know that.
So do we not want to talk about the Lorelei wants him to punch holes in this oil tanker that's not playing ball with what they want to do, and so he flies back, meets her on top of the Statue of Liberty, and it's a nice little boudoir in the Statue of Liberty by the looks of it. And then it looks like they engage in a bit of super coitus. Now, it had me wondering, and I think if you refer to the Superman the musical a little earlier in the episode, why did he give up his powers in Superman 2 if he can just, get it on anyway?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I'm a big wrestling fan, but Vince McMahon used to call himself the genetic jackhammer, and that's all I kept thinking. I agree, because that was the whole pretense of him having a relationship with a woman, wasn't it? The fact that he couldn't engage in extramarital activities, but he didn't seem to matter when he was a baddie.
That was the whole storyline to number 2.
Yeah. We just said then. I said we're going to have to call him the genetic jackhammer, I think, because he's Superman was having a great old time there. I think he was gutted when he turned back to good.
Maybe, I guess Lorelei had some sort of superpowers as well. Then, to be able to withstand the jackhammer.
That's maybe Lois was just
maybe said some kryptonite.
Kryptonite condom. Actually, so we are going to have to at some point review Mallrats, because I didn't just make that up myself. That's a whole piece in Mallrats where he talks about kryptonite condom. I can't remember the line, but it's just my brain's just wandered there.
Yeah.
Hancock deals with that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's a good film, Hancock, actually.
Yeah, do you know, I think people are... I think now we've had a bit more time from it, I think people are beginning to kind of appreciate that film for what it was. And also, you put Will Smith in a film, he's just cracking. I've got so much time for Will Smith. Maybe not on that one that he did with his kid. What was it? Is it Earth After Earth or something? Or
iRobot, was it?
No. The one where he's
with his lad, wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah. It was basically like a sort of a passion project for his kid.
Yeah, wasn't the best.
No, I mean, that was awful.
It was pretty bad.
But when we broke off into the supercoitus tangent, I cut you off there, Chris. So you were talking about that inner turmoil as Superman flies away.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. So obviously he flies away and we've got little Lana Lang's lad going, Superman, you can be great again. And she's going, he can hear me. Superman, you can be great. And obviously this is supposed to be the split personality. And we end up in the junkyard, which I've got to say, to this day, I can still watch that fight scene on YouTube on pretty much a loop. If I'm on a Friday night special when the wife's watching all the soaps, I'll start off with something like a Beatles cover song, and I'll end up in gypsy fights to all the superhero revivals. So it's the YouTube special evening there, mate. Depending on how many Prosecco's going down. But we end up on the superhero revival. So I'll end up in a bit of Wolverine coming back from the brink, Superman. And I can watch this scene over and over because I do think, me and Dave were talking about this, Mike, last week, and Dave said he was getting goosebumps when we were talking about it. I love this scene. The only thing I can pick in this fight between Clark and Superman is when he throws the tires on Superman.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. Everything that I've been told about Superman's powers, he made a fucking diamond at the end of the film.
He turned back time.
Yeah. Tires are his real weakness.
They were kryptonite tires.
It's not kryptonite, the Pirelli. That's
I can see a tire company paying for that to have happened though. Yes. And then for the advert afterwards to be the strongest tires.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve trying to break a tire or something. Even Superman can't break.
Yeah, exactly.
Tires. Yeah. And
Clark's like, just stand really still and really straight for a minute.
Yeah. Oh no, I do. I do love this scene. I don't know about you guys, but it makes the whole film. This is brilliant.
And again, it's just, him playing those two roles. It's just brilliant. And I guess, I'll forgive it for the fact of how the hell did he split? Is this in his mind? The only bit, and for you, it's the tyres, Chris. But for me, it's where he's got what's supposed to be a bumper.
Oh, yeah.
He's just hitting him with it, and it's obviously just foam or something. It just doesn't look like metal at all. It's all bendy and stuff. That's the only bit for me. But when he thinks he's squashed Clark and he's done him, and he just breaks out. And again, he's not just got an angry face. Of the three characters that Reeve's playing, Clark, good Superman, bad Superman, he breaks out of there as an angry Clark. And then starts strangling, bad Superman, and it's just brilliant.
It's like if you want to get into kind of talking about subtext and metaphors and things like that, it's it's a lovely physical representation of battling your inner demons, in this bizarre slapstick Superman film, but. Yeah, I can't imagine what, I can handle a cellophane S being thrown at Zod and his henchmen, but imagine just being sat down, like you as like a, sort of a normal average Joe cinema goer watching this film, the slapstick and the Richard Pryor stuff probably just sort of glosses over you because you're just there just to watch like some fluff. Mm-hmm. But that bit where Superman splits, like what? I'd love to just fucking know what people were thinking at the time when that first happened in the cinema. Just to sort of soak up. I wish the internet existed back then, just so I could see the actual reaction. Because I guess I could ask one of my parents about it or something, or like someone older or something like that. But to see that in the cinema. I would just, if I got a time machine, that's the sort of stuff I go and do. Nothing important.
Not like kill Hitler or anything. Or...
I don't know what ramifications that would have.
I think as well, though, what is more bizarre when he splits is that he's in his Clark Kent suit. So it's like, why is he not in his Superman suit? We've got the, I know it's to differentiate between the two where they have to fight, but that suit has come from out within his body, but it's also a physical suit because he changes at the end. Do you understand what I mean? And he actually sets it on fire with the acid, doesn't he, and melts it and stuff. Yeah. So it's a very illogical scene, the whole fight scene. But again, it's something I think 30 years, 35 years later, whatever it is, you sort of go, oh, well, fair enough. They were the decisions you made in 1983 when it was made. But I do agree, Mike, it's bizarre. It's really bizarre. But one thing I've got to say is there's a real bad bit. When he grabs him, and I can never understand why he used to say this Superman. He grabs Clark when he's on that conveyor belt, and he gets him, and you can actually see it's CGI because you actually see them both together for the first time. Clark's dishevelled, and then you got Superman above him, and he goes, "You've always wanted to fly, Kent. Now's your chance." And I'm thinking, well, he flies anyway. I don't understand what that meant. But you see his hand; he's not actually on his neck. It's like superimposed in, and it looks really bad. But I just didn't understand that line because it
was a terrible line, isn't it?
But
you are you.
But Christopher Reeve, he delivers it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
If there's one thing that's better than one Christopher Reeves, it is two of them, and it's just brilliant. I've got all the time in the world for this little section, and it's the thing that stuck with me so much as a kid. This and the bizarre red goo. I don't know why that always really stuck with me in this film, but yeah, the Superman versus Clark Kent. If I ever become a filmmaker and I get a Superman film, I'm going to weed that one back in.
Nice. Well, I mean, once he battles his inner demons, and I do wonder, you're speaking about metaphors, Mike, is it he's repressing the badder side of him, the part of him that really wants to just be a man, and he's swallowing that down and becoming the repressed, downtrodden Clark again.
The thing is, they already fucking dealt with it in the last one.
But, I mean, then he gets on to, we get the supercomputer that Gus has managed to put together on 3 small scrap pieces of paper.
Oh, I've got a big problem with this. These guys who are building this computer are absolute geniuses because they can actually decipher what his plans are for this supercomputer off a load of scrap. It's just nonsense.
Like little napkins and whatever. But then we do get this showdown. Again, it's a little bit weak, isn't it? But the supercomputer's built there, and then Superman comes initially, and he's initially stopped or slowed down by a hubba bubba. This little bubble that surrounds him, but no, he can get through that. But then they somehow have this kryptonite ray. Again, not quite sure how that works. I thought kryptonite was this mineral from Krypton, but okay, they've managed to get this ray, and he decides he's off. But then when is it now? I'm trying to think. The bit that I remember, and it haunted me for years as a kid, quite honestly, is where the computer starts to turn on the humans then. Yeah. And it basically turns the woman into this cyborg. I thought that was absolutely chilling. And even watching it now, I thought it was pretty horrible. There's something about the little scream that she gives out as she's being transformed into this kind of killer robot.
It's the stop motion. I think that's the thing that makes it really. All of a sudden, it's a horror film. It's like body horror. Yeah, it's exactly the same. That is the thing that fucked me up as a kid. It was, it's not like particularly violent, but you see like a close up of her eyes, and you see like the wires over it and stuff. And even as like an outfit for the actress to wear, it looks fucking uncomfortable as well. That was really affecting.
Yeah, well, it was. I agree with both of you, and I think as well, it's quite illogical. Like you mentioned regarding the bubble, Dave, and it was actually picked up on in the reviews where it says, Ross Webster, Robert Vaughn actually says, let's see how long you can survive without air. Well, one of the things that everyone said is, well, Superman can fly into outer space. Why is he not going to be able to breathe inside a little bubble? It doesn't make any sense. That was like pretty poor.
I never even thought of that. You're right.
Really poor. And like with her, the sister, she was, she's horrible in the film anyway, and she gets done. And I honestly, in my hand on heart now, watching it this time, I honestly believe the end of the film should have been when he changed back to the good Superman and did all the good deeds. And everyone goes on with the popcorn, empty the popcorn packets. Everyone goes on with a smile on their face. This was an unnecessary plot thing. And even the Atari bit with the Pac-Man noises when he was on that. How did he have cameras on Superman? And he was playing in a game. It just didn't make I'm a big gamer, Mike, so it made absolutely no sense to me at all. And apparently they brought a game out for the 5200 Atari, and they were going to release it and stopped because I always wanted to play that game. I had an Atari as a kid. I always wanted to play that game.
I did too. It doesn't look very good now, but at the time it looked great.
Yeah, it did. Because, apparently they had to make it into a computer game because it looked too real. Not the one we saw on the screen, what they actually made. So I'd love to have seen. You're a gamer. You play Red Dead and that, don't you, Mike, and stuff? You're a game yourself.
Do I play Red Dead? I think I'm living it right now. Yeah. This is gaming for me. Yeah. Currently talking to actual people. Yeah,
I'm the same. I'm massive. I play gaming all the time. So it's one of them watching that as a game and hearing the fact they use the Pac-Man music. And he's playing it with 2 joysticks, and it was Atari who set all this up for him. But it's not really convincing because the camera made no sense that he was on a computer game to me. And I'm getting like proper gamer now. I'm proper like into it going, this is ridiculous. But as a kid, I was well into it. I always wanted to play that game. It just sat with me. And I do agree. The one thing I've got about this fight at the end, which does my head in, when Superman comes with that acid stuff, whatever the hell it is, the goo, and they trace his body and say it's not a danger. Why does he get pulled into the robot by a load of wires when he's supposed to be the Man of Steel? I just think I'd never ever understood that.
He can fly around the Earth at the speed of light,
Yeah,
but a few strong wires pulls him down. It's very inconsistent, isn't it, with how strong he is? I mean, he was struggling at the start of the movie to get the top off a car, wasn't he? So,
did you guys not think as well, though, that scene with Robert Vaughn which is actually filmed? That supercomputer scene's filmed on Pinewood Studios, the 007 studio. That's where he was filmed, all that. The whole of that section was. I know it's supposed to be Colorado, wherever it is, in the desert and that, but that's where it was. But did you not think there's a set bit there, and I was crying, laughing, when he comes and that green ray's getting him, and Gus obviously smashes it, and then he points his finger at him like you would see when you watch a stage play, and he goes, "He's coming to get me! He's coming to get me!" It's like, I was just like, what? Just come on. He's not come there for a cup of tea to have a look at your new computer, mate, is he? He's coming to get you for your little planet taking over the world. It was just nonsense. It was like using the scene, when there was no need to. It's a film. It was like they were on a stage or something.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you've definitely given away that you know that.
Yeah.
The element of surprise is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, now, guys, I'm so sorry to go backwards. I'm so sorry. Dave, please forgive me. Is there any point we're going to mention the skiing scene when he falls off the building?
Oh, God.
Sorry, we've gone right to the end of the film. Quickly.
I do love the idea of that being on the top of a building, though. Just out of just ridiculousness.
The health and safety would be a nightmare.
Yeah, you'd have to have a safety person there. You couldn't just have that at the top of like a suite. No,
you couldn't. And also, as well, as I've got to say, whoever the glass firm were, Safe Style need to get him in, because that withheld some fall that when he landed on the glass. I'm telling you, when he skied off. But anyway, back to that. I just had to bring on.
But that was the whole scene, wasn't it? That Richard Pryor had done on. Was it Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
And, the Soul Kinds, of someone had seen it. I thought, oh, guys, that would be brilliant. Let's make a whole movie off it. But again, I was just, not to be a boring old fart, but I was just watching it thinking, am I supposed to be laughing at this? Is this funny?
Can I, if we're segueing very briefly back to things that we thought were or were not funny, can I talk about something that I don't think was meant to be funny, but I was fucking screaming at?
Of course, I'm intrigued now. I need to find out what this is.
I didn't get a chance to say it at the time, but when drunk Superman comes out of the bar, and is it Jimmy? Little Jimmy? Okay. Yeah. Little Jimmy's like, Superman. I just realised that it was just Christopher Reeves just running drunkenly away. It was just, honestly, it was just like, I mean, it was like being out with my mates on a night out, and one of the extra drunk ones, like, just running away from us, trying to go back to that last pub or something like that. It was, I heavily suggest people go and watch that one scene again, because watching Christopher Reeve just kind of stumblingly run away, like he's sprinting drunkenly away, I just took so much fucking enjoyment from it.
Well, to be honest, I think that whole bad Superman piece, I think you could just watch that whole bit and get quite a lot of enjoyment out of it and skip the rest of the movie.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it actually works quite well just in itself.
Yeah.
Superman gets his hands on some kryptonite that makes him bad, and then it gets resolved.
Yeah.
For 15 minutes.
That saves the whole film, to be honest, as we said before. It does, but I'm going to have to watch that now, because I think he runs off like Batman, the way Michael Keaton runs in the Batman.
I think he runs off like Hellboy's Batman.
Yeah, it's just the way the cape moves, and he's not really running with much grace.
No. He's got his Nike super boots on, hasn't he, I think? But yeah, so obviously we get this section now. He blows up the supercomputer, and basically it's just nonsense.
Well, he decides that he's not gonna let Gus off, doesn't he? Because he's Richard Pryor and getting paid a lot of money to be in the movie, I guess, and then drops him off at a mining facility and manages to squash that piece of coal, not just into a diamond, but a perfectly cut diamond as well.
Don't ruin it for me. I love that scene.
Yeah.
There's a little Easter egg there as well. That's actually a knockback to some of the original comics where Superman does that in the comics, actually, with the diamond. So that's why they did it. And also, it was filmed in the UK on an actual proper mining place. And did you not notice who one of the guys was as well?
I recognise both of them, I thought, but I didn't. I couldn't place them.
The thin one of the two was good old Larry Lamb out of Gavin and Stacey and stuff. You know,
in EastEnders as well, wasn't he?
as well, yeah, he's in EastEnders. Roxy's dad.
No way.
Honestly, yeah, Larry Lamb, 100%. It's him because it was filmed in the UK. That scene.
So they filmed the fourth one in Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I know, exactly. But no, honestly, then it's Larry Lamb, that 100%. Because did you notice the guy at the start, by the way, the one who gets the paint on him, who's got the suit on, the bald guy, gets the yellow paint, puts the umbrella up, and then when the guy's doing the miming stuff, and then that paint falls on his head, doesn't it? And he knocks the mime over in the stupid slapstick bit.
Yeah.
That was the main, he was the main foil for Benny Hill. Because he was someone that was filmed in the UK. He was in all the Benny Hill shows.
That's it, yeah, where he gets the old slaps him on the head.
Yeah.
Times.
Yeah.
What you get
Those are the days. You don't get sophisticated comedy like that anymore.
Oh my God, it isn't. I've just got it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
What? That's bonkers.
Yeah, that was one of his first acting roles, I believe. But yeah, I mean, that's quite a little section in it because they're like, you know, do you want a job here? I'd vouch for him and all that. He's like, no, I'll walk. It's 10 miles. Yeah, I'll walk. You know, that's probably the only bit in the film where I actually thought Richard Pryor was believable when he pulled the old Superman, pulled his jacket over. The rest of it, you know, it just is what it is, I suppose. But one thing I will say, just as we go, as we're at the end of the film, that has got slagged off about this film was Lana Lang obviously ends up at the Daily Planet. She gets a job and gets offered a job there, but there's no mention of her in Superman 4. There's not even a mention of her at all. So
I don't think we should be mentioning Superman 4 either.
I reckon Bad Superman came back and she's buried under the patio.
Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, there's not even a mention of her in the fourth one. So obviously, like you say, they're just contained films within their own world, these third and fourth ones.
I think she watched Superman 3 and when it was offered to come back, she had better ideas.
Yeah. Maybe she went off with the supercomputer or something. I don't know. But yeah, she definitely... But so that's the end of the film. Now, shall we go into the review scores?
Let's go for it.
Mike, as the guest, I know me and Dave have done this many times. We think it's only right that you should go in there, mate. Do you need a recap on the score system?
Whatever it is, just give me the bottom two.
well, if we're just
go on, Chris, run through the scoring system.
I'll do it anyway. So if it was the best film you've ever seen, which I don't think it will be, it's an Asgard. If it's slightly below that, it's an Atlantis. If it's middle of the road where you think it's not good, it's not bad, but it's watchable, it's a Halls of Justice. If it's getting pretty poor, Mike, we're going for Hell's Kitchen. So you're going sent off there with the Kingpin. And if it's really bad, you're going off with General Zod into his portable toilet. That's the Phantom Zone.
It's if Hell's Kitchen, the Hall of Justice, Asgard, and
Atlantis
attacked the Phantom Zone. It's sub-Phantom Zone for me. To be honest, I just separate the drunk Superman bit. I'll just take that. That's a fluke, as far as I'm concerned. That was because of one man doing a good job of acting. The film is abysmal. It is absolutely awful. It's a Phantom Zone. It's a Phantom Zone reject.
I think one of yours, Chris, wasn't it the toilet?
It was
The toilet in the Phantom
the
Zone.
Phantom Zone in the toilet with General Zod sat on it. I think I said something like that because it was, I think that was Howard the Duck. But yeah, no, very good score, Mike. And what about yourself, Dave?
So again, I went into this. I had a lot of fond memories as a kid watching this, and I still kind of had some kind of enjoyment out of watching it, but that's all to do with the nostalgia. If you're coming into this now to watch it, I think you're going to see it more for what it is. You're going to see a pretty awful, like a potpourri buffet of, tones and scripts and lines, and it's all just thrown together, and there's no coherent story at all. That said, I think the whole drunk/bad Superman bit is brilliant. I think Christopher Reeve's performance is stellar as always, and I think those two things just elevate it up for me. Again, the whole slapstick opening scene, I think I kind of enjoyed that because it was so bad, and so for me it's above the Phantom Zone for me, so it's in Hell's Kitchen. Chris, how about you?
Well, I think having watched, and as I said before, I've watched this probably as many times as I watched Superman 2 when I was thinking back this week. And I hold Superman 2 as an Asgard all day long. Terrence Stamp as General Zod and Gene Hackman, together, Lex Luthor, fantastic. Christopher Reeve's brilliant in that. And again, I think Margot Kidder as well. That could be one of the reasons the film suffered, because she's such a good actress and she's not used at all. Because Lana Lang's just a wet squib, isn't she? A damp squib, basically. She's just useless. You could have had a man.
Goal,
Oh, sorry, mate.
I'm absolutely seething.
He's seething with impotent rage.
not for her looks, Mike. I might add, just to sort of bring it back, but for her actual. Not necessarily for her acting. I'm now trying to get out of this hole, but
keep digging, Chris. I'm enjoying this.
More for the
script.
Popcorn. Yeah. More for the scripts and the actual use of her. She's not really a romantic foil to Superman. She's just she's just there, isn't she? Yeah, and she's got an annoying little lad who really doesn't need to be in the film. But anyway, but I do agree with pretty much with what both of you have said. I think watching it now, it's absolutely terrible. And liking Richard Pryor and, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and some of the other things I've watched him in, fantastic. In this, he absolutely... He calls this in worse than Marlon Brando. And I've called it, Mike, the Brando, because he absolutely blagged them. And he got a cut of the film production, not thinking they were going to make any money. And he absolutely come out of it, Marlon Brando, loaded. Now, Pryor at $5 million was $4,999 more than what he should have got paid, because he's absolutely awful in this, I think. But Christopher Reeve is the man, an absolute man. The bit in the second one when he reveals himself as Superman to Lois at Niagara Falls, where he goes from the slouched shoulders with the cardigan on when he's supposed to set his hand on fire to all of a sudden he grows a couple of inches, turns around, puffs his chest out. Classic, he's Superman. And you get that feeling in this one again. How he does it, as you said before, Dave, amazing. And that 15-minute segment just saves it from being an absolute pile of General Zod's human waste. So I'm going to give it Hell's Kitchen as well.
Kryptonian waste, please.
Sorry, Kryptonian waste. So Hell's Kitchen for me as well.
Very good, very good. Well, that's been an emotional one, hasn't it? And a long one as well. Chris, have you got any plugs for us?
I have, actually. Yeah, if you get over to Twitter and follow at Chat Footy, that's mine and Dave's and our good friend Ben's football show. It's usually weekly or bi-weekly where we talk about football. Dave and Ben are Liverpool fans, so they're having a lot of laughs at my expense being a United fan. And also on iTunes at Chat Footy. And then my other podcast is actually making a revised resurgence this week. Episode 50 of the Contextual podcast is actually going to come out. I've got a guest coming on Thursday, so get over to Twitter at Contextual and on iTunes Contextual Podcast. That's a gaming, MMA, WWE podcast where I do plenty of swearing. So what about yourself, Mike? What plugs have you got for us, mate? Where can they find you? What projects have you got coming up?
I'm sorry, I've done 2 podcasts with you now. I'm sure you've mentioned this before, but I didn't realise you were an MMA fan.
Oh, massive, yeah.
We're going to have to discuss things.
Yeah.
I've actually got I suppose this is going to segue into a plug. I do a mixed martial arts comic online called Average Joe about basically a shit MMA fighter. Everyone likes a Rocky story, but imagine if Rocky didn't have an iron chin. So that's basically the premise of it. If you follow me on Twitter, at Mike Lee Graham, all one word. I'll plug about it often. And that's my Twitter, and I don't really have any projects to plug at the moment. Our final Halloween was funded, as you guys said earlier, and it's been amazing. And we are Mike and I are going to be working on the sequel soon. So if you follow me and follow Mike at Mike Garley, Garley after Mike. We'll start talking about it quite soon.
That's cool. And to be fair, Mike, I'm sure you did say on the last time you were on that, once that project was out of the way, I think, what was it, the term you used? Something like you were smelling that sweet, sweet stress or something like that. And you said, basically, I think the rest of the year you're going to be gaming. So it's right in the middle of it,
unfortunately.
We won't mention the fact that you said you were going to work on a David Brent Office comic as well.
It's all it's all part of the stuff that I'm juggling. Some balls get dropped, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Dave?
Yeah, so the other podcast that I do is the Grassroots Coachcast. So that's where we talk about coaching youth football or soccer at the grassroots level. So try and tackle a different topic every week, all about the trials and tribulations of coaching there.
Stuff. Now, it's been episode 50. It's been emotional. We've had a couple of songs. Mike even nearly broke out into a song. Big thanks to Mike, top man again. And Dave, I've got to thank you, mate, because you put up with me for 50 episodes now. We've still not fell out, so that's even better. But yeah, been a great time, mate. What about yourself?
I thought you were going to break out into especially for you then, Chris. Oh, wait, no. Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try. Yeah.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. So really thoroughly enjoyed this 50 episodes. I'm really looking forward to the next 50 as well. I just don't quite know how we're going to top it. Will we have to make more songs or something else? But no, it's been great. And, you guys who are out there listening as well, thanks a lot for sticking with us.
Yeah, brilliant. And thanks again, Mike, for coming on, top man, reviewing and listening to us both sing.
Thank you for having me back on and being courteous in my rambling.
No, good word. Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Now, Dave, it looks like it's come to the end of the show. I mean, what are you going to take us out with?
Well, in the movie, Ross Webster says to Gus, I ask you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing. Well, Richard Lester, you nailed it.
Fury sound, like he's been a killing school. Half knows he's the man.